gonna get drunk on this podcast. I guarantee it's gonna happen. But at the end of this, I'll be like, fuck burnout. Like, who fucking cares?
This episode is about burnout and self-care. David Skaggs, friend of ours, entrepreneur himself, along with working 50 full-time creative jobs.
I'm Emma Pardo, and this is episode 4 of Fuck Your Podcast.
We're already burnt out talking about burnout.
Seriously.
Self-care, we might talk about a little bit with, drinking alcohol. But David Skaggs, friend of ours, entrepreneur himself, along with working 50 full-time creative jobs. So
that is me. That is true.
And this is probably episode number 10 that he's done this week of some sort of podcast.
Really?
No.
Well, not like.
I was like, damn, David, you're popular.
I thought, are you doing? You and Madison have a podcast, and then you also obviously help other people shoot podcasts. So.
Yeah, I create a bunch of podcasts. Madison and I have one, but like it's a lot harder for us to create one in our house because like I want to set up lights and cameras and I can't monitor them. So the last one that we did, I was so annoyed because Madison looks perfect. My camera so fucking out of focus, and I was so angry because I was like, I was the one who led the conversation, and I'm just narcissistic enough to like want myself on like more stuff. And I was like, I was slightly out of focus. It was like focused on my microphone, not my face, and I was just like, that's so annoying.
It just gave you like a nice glow.
I made it black and white. I called it an artistic choice.
Right, there you go. There you go. So, kind of like we'll recap a little bit of what we've been talking about for like the last 40 minutes. But David, we've known each other for a while, and as long as I've known you, you have had a full-time job, ran a full-time business, and also taken on freelance work full-time. And running that hard over a long period of time is, most of us can look at it and go, it's exhausting, but like the physical, the physical and the mental actual symptoms of real burnout, like what's that like? And, what's one of the worst cases of burnout that you've experienced, having to juggle all of that?
Yeah. I remember suffering burnout for the first time really when I was 23, I think. I'm 34 now, so this was 11 years ago, way back in the day when I was just a wee lad making projects. I was living in Kansas City. I was making infomercials every single day. So the legitimate 30-second infomercials that you see like starts in black and white. It's like, are you unable to keep track of all of your Tupperware? Like literally those.
I just like so much nostalgia.
Oh yeah. I could still do the voice because I had to do the scratch tracks.
Wait,
before we hired
the one of the cakes, the infomercial of the cakes, and they were like dome cakes.
There
were
was
like
a lot.
Two layers.
There was a lot of them. I did a couple that like went viral. A couple ones like actually did like really well.
Yeah. Nice.
One was a knockoff of the Huggy. Remember the Huggy or the Snuggie? Like the like the blanket robe
sleeves.
Thing. Yeah. We did one of those, and that did pretty well.
What was it called?
The Huggy or something. Like it was like
that's a diaper.
It was like the knockoff name. Like it was very.
It was the Slanket.
Basically, yeah. Another was a paw, like a boot for pets, like when they're walking out in the snow. And it was the most hysterical thing to film because every animal hated it. So it literally looked like the infomercial that they make on It's Always Sunny, where it's like, does your cat make too much noise all the time? You're so stupid. Like, it's just like every animal just walked. Anyway, moving on. I got burnout when I was like 23. I was doing that every single day. I was working for one other person, and I was creatively unfulfilled, and I was just exhausted. Even back then, at the time, I was dealing with a breakup of my high school and college sweetheart. We'd been together for like 7 years. We broke up because who you are at 16 is not who you are at 23.
Right.
It's nothing against either of us. We're still great friends to this day, but you grow up and you change.
Right.
But that required me to move out, and my bills tripled because of that, so I worked making infomercials during the week in Kansas City, and then on the weekends I would drive home to St. Louis and I would shoot weddings for a company making $330 a day, and then I would drive back to Kansas City on Sunday. So I would work Friday until 5, get in my car, drive to St. Louis, get home by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, probably go out for drinks that night, go shoot a wedding for 10 hours on Saturday, go out after that for a couple of hours, go to sleep, wake up, drive back to Kansas City, which is a 4.5 hour drive, and then do it all over again. So eventually you just get worn out. There's no safety net there. There's no,
Right.
If you make a mistake, you're fucked completely.
Right.
So I got burned out then. I've been burned out multiple times in between there. The most recent one that I can remember was summer of 2021 going into winter of 2022, because as most people who have gotten married in the last couple of years, we've had to deal with COVID, and a lot of wedding venues shut down, and you weren't able to have the wedding that you might have planned, because especially in 2020 and 2021, you dropped down to potentially only being able to have 20 people in a room.
Right.
And a lot of bride and grooms opted, instead of trying to force a wedding in 2020 that they had paid X amount of money for and only be able to have a tenth of the people that they wanted there, opted instead to wait 18 months and reschedule into 2021. So starting in mid-August of 2021, I shot a wedding every single weekend from mid-August until late December. And I worked a full-time job as a full-time creative. I was a photographer and videographer for a construction company in their marketing department. So I worked 40 hours a week during the day, like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I would shoot a wedding for 10 hours on Saturday. It took me approximately 15 to 20 hours of post-production to finish that wedding film, which is 3 to 4 hours a night, 5 days a week. So I would work 12-hour days, basically, plus drive time to and from my office job. And then I would start it all over again, because I would finish one wedding film and then I would go and shoot another. So it just back to back to back to back to back. I never made any progress. I constantly felt like I was treading water.
Right.
And by February of 2022, I was just completely dead. I had absolutely nothing left in the tank. I was running on fumes, mentally, physically, creatively, emotionally exhausted. And from then, everything shut down. Like, there's dead periods. When you're a creative, you're slammed 6 to 7 months out of the year, and then you're dead the other 4 to 5.
Right.
So I didn't have anything to do for about 3 months. February came around, I got caught up. I jumped back into the corporate life. I kind of adjusted to a 40 to 50 hour a week schedule as opposed to a 70 to 80 hour a week schedule. And then I started booking again. And by the time you heal from the first burnout, it's time to start pushing down on the gas and starting again for the next year. And now this year, we're in end of March, currently 2023. This year, for the first time ever, I opted to step back a little bit. I've only got 6 weddings booked this year, as opposed to I had 22 last year.
Oh my God.
I had 22 last year. I think I had a little bit more than that in 2021. 2020, obviously I had like 6 that decided to keep going. Yeah. But before that, I was working full-time for a wedding production company, and I was doing 50 to 60. Right. I remember 2017, October of 2017, I shot 13 weddings. So I Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And basically it would have to be all 3 days of the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think 52 weddings a year, that's one every weekend of the entire calendar year. So that's nuts.
It sounds brutal, if I'm being honest. I would hate that.
Well, absolutely hate it.
It's exhausting, and that's what makes it so hard, is like when you're burned out. I love making wedding films. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Mhm.
You know, rarely do I have a problematic couple. Do I have a problematic mother of the bride or in-law, anything like
Yikes.
that? Typically, I have the best clients that I could possibly ask for. You know, so it's honestly just the most fun you could possibly have on the day of a wedding, because you're celebrating the best day of somebody's life,
Right.
in theory, at that, up until that point in their life. So
Right.
everybody's happy, everybody's having a good time, everybody loves you, they love each other. It's so much fun. But when you get burned out, you lose sight of that. And
Right.
that's what makes things so hard, is you feel so cynical and you feel like such a fraud, at least in my case. I can't speak for other people. But when I would get burned out midway through the season, I'd be like, it became like a difficult cycle to break out of, because I would want to go shoot the wedding because that's fun for me. But then I'm there and I'm like, you don't feel it. You don't feel like you want to be here.
Right.
Mhm.
People are going to figure out that you don't want to be here. This is going to cause you to book less. This is going to cause you to not make as much money. This is also going to cause you to not produce a quality product for your client.
Right.
It was just cyclical to where then I would go to the shoot. I wouldn't want to be there. I'd be anxious about not wanting to be there. I'd still do a good job, but like I'd feel like garbage, you know? And then I would sit down to do the edit and I would relive those moments while watching the footage.
Right.
And it's like, you know, it would take me 6 hours to get 20 seconds into a film, because I'm sitting there looking at the footage and I'm just like, you're a fake, you're a hack. Like, you don't believe in what you're selling, even though I
Right.
did, but you
Mhm.
can't break out of that, you know?
Right.
So burnout is as much mental as it is physical, at least in my case.
Right.
I think
So
I would say it's probably even more. I mean, well, if you think of creative positions, like just like you said, the being mentally taxing, and you got to be invested or committed when you're doing something of that level. And usually when you feel like, I love doing this, but right now I hate doing this, it's usually one of those symptoms of, yeah, I'm either overworked and we either got to figure out a way to to take a break. And sometimes it's not that easy, because we're the worst of creating that cycle that just never ends.
Right.
And once you get something that you feel like you just never feel like you're ever going to see the end of the tunnel, and like the light at the end of the tunnel, that you don't feel as if in the position that you're in right now that you can change anything. It's just like all I can do is put my head down and try to power through it. But you're just stressed out, and all you're fighting with like every ounce of, I just don't want to do this right now.
Mhm.
And that's usually your body and your brain telling you, hey, something has to change. Like,
Right.
you're either going to crash, or you sometimes can just power through the burnout, but usually you just don't know how to prevent it from happening again.
Right.
because you don't know that it's happening. So everybody has to power through burnout, unfortunately.
Right.
By the time you realize that you're burned out, you're deep into your season, or you're deep into your queue, and you can't get out of it. Unfortunately,
Right.
that's part of what starts the burnout, is you can't see the forest through the trees. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So unfortunately, you have to power through it, because we don't live in a society that allows you to be like, hey, I'm not feeling comfortable enough to continue on doing these projects. I need you as my client to understand that I can't do the job that you paid me to do. We don't live in a society that allows that.
Right.
Which,
Right.
say what you want, whether you think that that's right, wrong, or otherwise, that's the world that we live in, and it's the business that we operate in.
Mhm.
So you have to finish what you need to be able to do. And it's a lot easier to say it than it is to do it. But you need to be able to take those moments and figure out where you went wrong and not do it in the future.
Right.
But take it from somebody who's done this every single year. And, come October, I'm sitting here cursing out the David of March.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, why did you
Right.
not learn from last year? Why are we in this exact same position? Only now we're a year older. We're a year more tired. We're a year more
Right.
out of shape. You know, like I can't burn the midnight oil every single night like I used to be able to at 22, you know? So like, you've got to be able to figure out how to adapt to the next year and learn where your strengths and your weaknesses are. And for me,
Absolutely.
my weakness is financial. You know, I love money and I love making people happy, and I love
Money talks.
money talks. And I also I joke all the time. When people like what I produce, I'm very driven by that. I want people to be like, oh my God, I love that video that you created. That is what drives me. It's not the creating. I don't love the creation of it. I like the creation of it. I'm good at the creation of it, but I love seeing people's reaction to what I created.
It's bringing that vision to life. And I agree with you. I'm the same exact way. I love that someone has a vision. They go, I need this done this way. I don't know how to do it. And you're able to like solve that problem for them and bring it to life. And then they're just eternally grateful.
They see it and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is it's better than what I had in my mind. And it's like, keep going. Like I went to stop, but also keep going. Like,
that's what I put on Katie. I think I sent a gift to Katie like that. I was like, stop, but go on.
Yeah, but go on. Which, you know, if you respond that way to that kind of feedback, that kind of leads into like the people pleaser mentality, which gets people stuck in a cycle of burnout because you don't want to tell somebody no. Like if somebody's like, hey, I'm going to give you this project and I'm going to throw $3,000 at you. And I know that you do good work. So I'm probably gonna be pretty damn excited when you get this done. It's hard to tell somebody no. Right. And especially with all of the, you know, and when you're afraid that telling somebody no is going to make them unhappy, where, you know, it takes a long time, even as an adult, to get to a place where you can help, like in a healthy way, tell someone no. So you're not overcommitting, putting you straight on that path to burnout, like taking on more than you can handle.
I know it sounds shitty, but I'm still in that, like I can tell people no now. Like ask me a few years ago, I'd never say no. Like if somebody asked me to do something, and I had the rude awakening of, I had somebody ask me for a favor and I was like, yeah, sure, like I can do that for you. And they're like, oh, I just love asking you because you never say no. And it was like, oh, I'm kind of offended. Like you just used me. You just blatantly admitted that you used me. But where was I going with that? Oh no, being able to tell people no, but I feel like I have to make it the reason why I'm saying no sound good enough. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to just be like no because X, Y, and Z. I like I fluff it. It's not that I'm not doing it, or it's not that I'm lying about it. I just try and sound like I sympathize for saying no, but I don't.
Yeah. There's a powerful way of telling people no now. Like when you're older, it's just like I can't overcommit to that. Like it's not something that's in my wheelhouse right now. It's not something in my toolbox not right now. It's not something that I have time to do right now. Like I'm already committed, where some people it's like I can't tell you that I could do that because I don't want to overcommit to something that I don't have the bandwidth to do right now. And I've gotten to that place professionally. Like personally, I don't know. I think I still teeter on that. I have a people pleaser personality. It's hard for me to tell somebody no. And I want to make somebody happy regardless if I'm creating something for them, if I'm just doing something for them.
Right.
But that's something that is a fast track to burnout, because I've been the person who it's like, oh, well, she can do that, so I'm just going to give this to her and give this to her and give this to her and give this to her. And I just go, okay. And when you don't say no, before you know it, you're just buried. And it's like, well, there's nobody else that can do this, or there's nobody else that I can give these things to because they were already given to me.
Right.
And like in a professional sense or professional setting, in either way, being able to, like, there's some instances if you don't say no, you might not be in a place to have anybody to delegate it to. And David, I know that when we met, even in your wedding business, back then you probably didn't have anybody, or maybe one other person that you could delegate to. But I know that a lot of those shoots, you were like, nope, I'm the shooter, I'm the editor. And so you did it from beginning to end. And I know that you've had to change that recently, which has probably been a positive change.
Yeah. When I went out into business on my own in I want to say it was 2018,
Yeah.
I specifically said, no, I'm not bringing on other shooters. I was given an opportunity by a mutual connection that you and I have, Katie, to grow the wedding company that I had very quickly. I mean, it was within a year that I had started it. I had done enough quality work, and I was respected in the community enough that I was given an option to essentially take a sizable investment at the time, buy new equipment, train cinematographers, and grow the company to not just be myself, but be essentially a multi cinematographer and editor team where we could do 3 weddings a weekend, essentially, which is similar to the company that I left before.
Right.
And I was burned out on weddings because I was doing 50 a year, and it was just exhausting. And I decided that when I started my own company, I wasn't going to do that, because I wanted to take the weddings that I wanted to do. I wanted to tell the stories that I wanted to tell, and I wanted to work with the clients that I wanted to work with. So when given that opportunity, it was in my opinion, one of the strongest decisions I've ever made, was to specifically say, no, I don't want to do that, because while the money is good, the stress is outweighed by the financials.
Right.
Or the financials are outweighed by the stress. I wanted to control the market. I wanted to control the creative. I wanted to control the output specifically. And I did that for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm at the point where back then I was doing freelance and weddings. That's it. I wasn't working full time anywhere. But when COVID happened, I had to pivot, and I had to find a way to make the money that I had grown accustomed to making in the wedding and freelance industry differently, because the money that I was making in 2019 wasn't available in 2020.
Right.
So I had to adapt, and I had to take the skill set that I had learned and pivot it to be something different. So I worked in the corporate world, and I took full-time jobs, and I wasn't as happy at those full-time jobs. They were 6-7 month contracts. I stayed somewhere for 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
I did a good job. I established a brand, and then I left to go do something else, because I'm obsessed with building. I can't maintain. I have to build something, and then it stands on its own 2 feet. And I'm like, great, it's operational. Bye. I'm going to go build something else. So eventually, when I started working full-time places and found a company that I really enjoy, now the problem is that I've grown accustomed to that financial income.
Yeah.
And then I also want the money from weddings, and I want the money from freelance. And it's like, now I can't go back. So now what I have to do is I have to figure out how to say no to things. And it's very interesting, the 2 ways that you guys were saying how you like to say no to things, because I have no problem saying no to personal things.
Right.
No problem with it. I'm an introverted extrovert in a way that, like, I like my time until the moment I don't like being there anymore. And then the moment I don't like being there anymore, I Irish goodbye, and I'm going back home where I'm comfortable.
I love a good Irish goodbye.
I tell this to my wife every time we go somewhere. I'm like, I reserve the right. Like, we'll be sitting at our kitchen table, grabbing keys and ready to go. And I look straight at Madison and I say, I reserve the right to say, when I'm done, and I'm going to go home. And I can Uber, or I can drive us both. You tell me which one you want in that moment. Because I am somebody who doesn't say, like, hey, I've got about an hour left in me, wrap it up. I'm like 5 minutes, and I've realized I've hit my wall, and I'm ready to go home. So, like, it's like, you got 5 minutes left in me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like the Midwestern dad when you slap the lap. Well,
I'm out.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm gonna head out.
looks like it's time to go. My hat's on, heading out.
What's so funny is my brother, we always make fun of him every time he's getting ready to, like, leave. He does, like, this fake yawn, like he's so tired and has
Makes
to
a
go.
dad
It's
noise.
like this. Yeah, and then
look at the
I'm gonna get going. That's how it usually is.
That noise is so dad.
Yeah.
Well, like, I want to ask you guys then on these burnouts, like, kind of segueing into the self-care, like, what is your recovery after a burnout? What do you do? Does it take a while? Does it take a short period of time? Like, what is your recovery process into the self-care? Because recovering from a burnout is obviously you caring for yourself to recover.
Fuck.
Mine,
Good question, Emma.
That is a good question. I've probably been the rarity where like some time away has helped. Oh, so recovering from a burnout. I've probably, I hate to, like, have you seen the TikToks lately where it's like, take a vacation, they said. Yep. Well, this is real pretty, but I'm still miserable. So I actually have been like, if I felt like I wasn't walking back into the same mountain of crap, like, 'cause there have been instances where that didn't work, but being able to like step away where, or if I finally go, like, Jesus, can you just help me with this one thing? And it's not that I don't, some people can't get outside of the burnout because they don't ask for help. I was in a
Right.
lot of situations where I would ask for help and I would not get it. So, and then I was just told that it was my own fault for the situation that I was in. So, being able to step away from the environment, and I mean, it's sometimes it's a lot of work to kind of dissect it a little bit, but you got to be removed. Like, almost, if you have that ability to be removed, or you get to that place where, you actually power through when you feel like you're burnout, that you give yourself like some sort of mental space where you can like reflect and be like, okay, can I actually control not letting this happen again? Like, what can I really do differently to where this doesn't happen again? And that's what, that's what I've done. But self-care in general, and David, you can attest to this too. Like, I think more of it is, I hate using the cheesy, like, well, you just have to have work-life balance, where, it's not necessarily real, but there is a degree of balance where you have to be very deliberate about, I'm not going to get to that point, and I'm going to make sure that I do take care of myself along the way. The mental exhaustion that's associated with burnout is because you've not given yourself any type of care leading up to that point. And you've ignored all the signals. You've ignored all the warning signs, and now you're buried on the cusp of, like, there's a slippery slope between burnout and just full on depression. And that's where, if people can catch themselves and get through it before you get full on depressed, I mean that's a good thing. But if you continue, if it's a pattern, you have to listen to the warning signs, and you have to actually take care of yourself, and whatever gives you some mental peace and clarity, little bits along the way, is going to make a huge difference. And trust me, that's some shit you don't know when you're young. Like,
No.
you don't, I mean, that's something with wisdom, but most people, you live in that cycle through a lot of your 20s and 30s, and then eventually you're like, all right, I can't do this anymore.
I lived through it with working. I worked at the bowling alley for 8 years, and I keep going back to the bowling alley, but that's like the one thing that sticks out as the biggest burnout I ever had. 8 years in that bowling alley, and not being able to put my foot down and say, this is not what I want. So knowing that it wasn't ignoring the signs, it was trying to push through the signs to see if I would eventually like love to do what I do. And there were some great parts about the job, but I hated it. And it wasn't because of anybody that had an influence on me. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't the people, the customers. It wasn't the actual act of bowling. It was just, this isn't me. I don't care for it.
Yeah.
And that's something that was like what I figured out early on, and which is why I believe I'm an old soul, is that I experienced that from ages 15 to 23. Yeah. And that's where I worked, and that's what I experienced. And it was just kept pushing through. And now making the decisions, getting out of the bowling alley, going, this is what I want to do with my life. And it's okay for me to take charge and either say no or move past or take a left when everybody else wanted me to go right. You know what I mean?
I mean, Emma, your question, I think it's multi-parts, unfortunately, which is a hard way to answer it. But to answer your question just bluntly, and to answer it as honestly as possible, when I'm burned out, how I recover from that burnout changes every single burnout. Mm-hmm. There's no set way to recover from it, unfortunately. It depends on where you are in your life, because the last time I got burned out, I was also planning a wedding. So like I didn't have like there was no point where I could be like, hey Madison, I'm toast. I got nothing in the tank. I got nothing mentally or emotionally right now. I need to just be depressed for a little bit. And I need you to be okay with me going to work, coming home, sitting on the couch and pretending to be a cowboy in 1800s and play Red Dead Redemption. Like I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, that was not an option. So you have to figure it. There's no trick to getting out of a burnout, unfortunately, but time takes all of that weight off eventually. The problem is that time also makes you forget what got you into the burnout in the first place.
Yeah, right. And that's dangerous. I mean, and because that's really the only thing, like you said, I 100% agree. There's no simple trick to get out of the burnout, but you've got like, and it's not really even a trick because it's very deliberate and you got to be very like in tune with yourself because it's a pattern. Like the only thing is, what can you do to actually prevent it from happening again?
What can you add to your life that will help you to get out of that pattern or help you better regulate that pattern? Madison and I, my wife, I say that for the viewers who don't know her. We call it seasons. We joke all the time about it being a season. When I entered therapy in February of 2021. I was at a point in my life where I was having literal weekly panic attacks. And I'm talking fall on the floor in the fetal position, think I'm having a heart attack. I need to call the hospital. I'm about to die panic attacks. Not like, oh my God, like I'm really like anxious right now. I mean like literal can't breathe. Have to lay on a hyperventilating, have to lay on a cold floor naked, panic attacks.
Right.
And I was having those multiple times a week. I started therapy. I started cognitive behavioral therapy with my therapist, Rebecca, who is a godsend. We did a 16-week session where I met with her once a week for an hour and just went through everything that was going on. And she had me write down every single day. She had me start a journal and write down every single thing that was going on in my life, what I ate, what I drank, what happened at work. So I could track the things that caused me to have these panic attacks and I could have data and I could study that data and I could use it as homework and I could figure out like what was really causing me to have these kind of hyperventilating situations.
Right.
And after 16 weeks, I remember talking to her. I was sitting at home and I was on my FaceTime with her. And I was like, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to talk about today. Like I had a little mini panic attack, but like I was able to talk myself down from it. And I realized like, oh, I hadn't drank a lot of water today and I had alcohol the night before and blah, 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 blah. And she's like, yep, well, it's about that time. Like this is typically you've had 16 weekly sessions with me. That's been 4 months of talking to me every single week at the exact same time on the exact same day. And, you know, we're moving on. So now is about that time where I think you could probably go to once every other week or once a month. Like you don't need me as often anymore. That was 2 years. I still, to this day, when I start to get anxious and when I start to feel that kind of burnout and that I'm losing grip on the, for lack of a better term, reality where things are moving really fast and I'm in autopilot a lot more. And I'm going and doing one thing for 9 hours, then I'm coming home and I'm doing another thing for 4 hours, and then I'm doing another thing for 3 hours. And then my day's over. I did 3 things all day. And I didn't let the dogs out once because Madison handled it. I didn't eat a real meal because I DoorDashed everything. I've drank nothing but yellow Red Bull and Mountain Dew. I've had no water, you know. That is the point where I realize like, okay, it's time for another season of therapy because I need weekly sessions to regulate myself.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not as easy of an answer of like, how do you recover from burnout? You recover from burnout by throwing away the match and grabbing a new match.
Right.
The best way for me to describe burnout is trying to light a fire with an already struck match. Yeah. It's never going to work.
Right.
The match is done. You're just going to piss yourself off and you're going to tire yourself out and it is never going to work. So the best way to recover from a burnout is to understand that match is done and it has to be thrown out, and you have to go get the matchbox, open it, grab a new match, and strike again. That's the best way to recover. Is it's just understanding that point in your life is over, and you're now starting a new point from that day. And all you can do is work your way forward. The better way to do it is to keep the matchbox closer to you. Right. Understand when this match is no longer lighting and you're not going to keep trying to restrike it. You're going to throw it away earlier and grab a new match out of the matchbox. For me, it's understanding how to regulate your schedule, how to find things that help you stay motivated. In my experience, stay creative. Not find a way to monetize that creativity. That is my biggest problem. I'm a full-time creative. I'm a photographer, videographer, podcast creator, recently podcast guest, traveling filmmaker, documentary filmmaker. Every single element of what I do, I have found a way of what I do well and what I do that I enjoy. I found a way to monetize.
Right.
The only thing in my life that I haven't monetized historically is video games, because I'm not willing to invest in the streaming setup. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So that is one of my outlets, is playing video games. And that was a thing that my therapist specifically told me, that she was like, if that's what you like to do, and that is a way that you can decompress, then I'm going to write you a prescription for 2 hours of video games a week. Just like, I'll give you a prescription for it. You can give it to your wife and be like, my therapist says I've got to play Red Dead Redemption for 2 hours tonight. She's like, if that's what helps you decompress, then do it.
Right.
So now in my everyday life, I have therapy once a month when I need it. And I know when I need it, I can feel it.
Right.
I play Dungeons and Dragons at least once a week, because it is a creative outlet for me that I'm not going to monetize. It's just a way for me to A, meet new people and make friends, and B, be wildly creative for 4 to 5 hours once a week.
Right.
And I have that set on a schedule where it's on my wife and I's weekly calendar that, like, hey, I've got D&D on Friday and I've got a wedding on Saturday. I work during the day, know what I've got coming up. So it's regulating yourself is the way. But no, I think the best way to recover from burnout is to avoid burnout altogether. And that is to regulate your schedule and regulate what allows you to decompress. To use another metaphor, burnout is basically shaking up a bottle of soda over it. It's letting a bottle of soda rattle around in the floorboard of your car for 6 weeks, and then being like, oh shit, I'm really thirsty. And there's this can of Sprite that's sitting here. And then you go to open it, and surprise, surprise, it explodes all over you in your car.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is it's like one day you're incredibly thirsty and you reach for this last little thing of sustenance that you have an option to take. Right. And then it explodes in your face and you've got this much soda left in the bottom of the can because everything else is all over you in your car. So the best way to avoid that is not let the can rattle around.
Right.
Pick it up the day it falls and place it somewhere, whether you place it in the side cup holder or in the main cup holder. You take control of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And you find outlets, whatever your outlet is. If it's working out, if it's running, if it's reading, if it's taking a bath, like whatever that outlet is for you that is relaxing, that allows you to let the carbonation out slowly. That is what you do to avoid burnout.
Yeah.
In my experience.
No, that's a great analogy. And like, I think you have like that whole, you're 100% right. Like it's not healthy to continuously be in a cycle of burnout. Like there's nothing healthy about that. There's nothing productive about that. You usually find that you're stuck in a certain spot and you can't get past that. And it's the only way to avoid it. And and a thing to recognize too is like, do you have something to support you through that? Do you have a spouse? Do you have a partner? Do you have somebody who can support you in those instances. And if it's not something that's like, you know, all encompassing of your life, because you're right, like burnout affects every area of your life. So it's not always just professional burnout. It spills into your personal life. It's all life, right? And sometimes sometimes it's just a change of what you're doing, like a change of like your daily practice, your daily habits. And sometimes it can just be a change of environment. Like you might be in a space, you might be in a job, you might be in some sort of relationship where it's never going to be conducive for you to get out of that spot. And you got to have some support, because sometimes it takes a big life change in order to prevent that from ever happening again. So, but yeah, being able to recognize that you've got to take the steps to prevent it is I think one of the biggest takeaways from all that we've talked about, because it's just not normal to do it all over and over and over again.
And understand that no is a complete sentence. That's it. No
True.
is a full sentence.
Yep.
The people who are going to be upset with you for telling them no are not the people who are going to benefit you moving forward.
Right.
I'm sorry. I've worked with people on all sides of the spectrum. The people who are the most impactful creatively and professionally in my life are not the people who give me shit because I say, hey, I'm sick, I'm not feeling great today, I'm not able to shoot on 24 hours notice.
Right.
It's the people who plan something out 6 weeks in advance. And when I come to them 5 days out being like, hey, I'm dealing with something right now, they're the people who are like, no, then we'll adjust.
Right.
We'll adjust.
The communication is huge. That type of communication is absolutely huge.
Yeah. The job that I'm at right now have told me multiple times that I say yes to jobs too fluidly. They're like, you need to say no more, because you're setting yourself up for an expectation that you will always say yes.
Right.
And this is a multi-million-dollar industry. It's a
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar company where some of the projects that I'm working on are huge. I was in a month, just in February alone, I was at the Super Bowl, I was at the Daytona 500, and I was in Aspen for the World Downhill Snow Races. I don't fucking know. I don't ski.
Something big with skiing.
Yeah, I don't ski. But I was there for a huge client,
Right.
you know? And when I got back, literally they were like, take PTO. Take PTO, because if you don't take PTO, you're going to get sick.
Right.
What happened? I had the flu for the last 6 days. Yesterday was the first day that I was able to get out of bed for 5 days, because I just killed myself for 3 straight weeks on a plane in Phoenix in one climate, back to St. Louis where it was winter, got on another plane 2 days later, went to Daytona where it was summer, got on a plane, got back to St. Louis where it was winter, then went to Aspen where it was really winter, you know, and it was negative 12 degrees.
Yeah.
And side note to entrepreneurs, don't be that entrepreneur that guilts their employees for taking PTO.
Dude.
That nothing burns an employee out more than guilting them when they ask for the time that you've allotted them off.
Right. There's a reason that you offer it.
Right.
Don't forget that.
I have another question for you guys. What's your favorite like self-care right now? Like in your day-to-day, what do you do? What are you practicing that's self-care?
I used to be better at this. I used to be way better at this.
I have 2. I'm going to stand by it again. Creative people, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It is my favorite thing that I do right now. I've made some of my best friends that I've ever made in my life in the last year and a half since I've picked up this hobby. It is just the most fun I could possibly have. That is my biggest self-care thing. Number 2, a little bit different, skincare. Man. Yeah. Skincare is incredibly important to me.
It's therapeutic.
It is. And it's like, it changes the game, man. It's a self-care thing that doesn't bother anybody else. I do my regiment. I've got under eye. You can't tell now, but I've been sick for 6 days. But I got bags under my eyes today. But I thought about putting some stuff on underneath my eyes for this podcast. But yeah, skincare. That's my self-care.
Absolutely.
Skincare and adult make-believe.
Adult make-believe. I mean, it's Dungeons and Dragons pretty fun, but yeah, also a creative outlet though. Like you get to disassociate a little bit. You have your own totally different reality, so it gives your time, like your brain, like to disconnect and reset.
But it's also therapeutic because like you're dealing with problems because everybody creates their own character, but you create your own character. So either on a surface level or a subconscious level, you bring your own problems into the game and you bring your own problems into the character. So there is some therapy there where like, yeah, you might not be willing to talk about a problem that you had as David. I'm not going to sit here and whine to my friends about a problem I've got with my dad. Right. I don't have a problem with my dad right now, but I'm just saying, like, right, for the lack of a better term, I'm not going to talk about a problem that I've got with my parents, with my friends. But like as Valak, a character that I created for a D&D campaign whose parents sold his soul for riches, there's some therapy there of like being upset at your parents for a thing that they didn't think was going to really cause you long-term harm. Right. And it's like on a surface level, yeah, that's not really an issue that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But subconsciously, there are issues there that like, a lot of people, at least, especially Emma, you and I's age, and Katy, even I would say more so your generation, that like your parents are much less willing to go to therapy than our parents are. Oh, so there are whole generational elements of things that like you have to deal with, and you might not be able to talk to them as you going to your actual parents and being like, hey, this thing you did when we were kids caused long-term harm. But you could talk to a dungeon master who just plays pretend and says like, oh, I'm sorry. And you're like, this is all I needed. You know, so like D&D for me is therapeutic as well as it is fun. So creative people, fucking, if you take anything from this podcast, 1, go to therapy, 2, play D&D. Those are my only things that I want to teach any creative listening to this podcast, or anybody that knows a creative. It like give them that outlet.
Right. I would say right now, along with like skincare, is like actually taking the time to make sure that I'm working in a sweatshirt now and like comfortable pants, but I take the time out of my day to like put makeup on and like wash my face, do moisturizer, do some makeup. It's not a whole lot, but it's that whole like, this is my time for myself, I'm doing this for me kind of deal. And then I go throughout my day, and then it's at the end of the night, I try to, if I can, I hop in the bath, and it's like I take a solid hour where this is my time to scroll through TikTok mindlessly and shut down for the night, and then I go get in bed. That's helped a lot, and I didn't start doing that. I never really did a whole lot of self-care before dating Cole, because Cole is somebody that really makes self-care a priority. And he communicates great about it. Like, I need my time right now to be by myself, so I'm gonna go be by myself. Cool, have fun, bye, see ya. And I never did that I never really needed it as much until living with a 5-year-old every other week. It's like he goes a million miles an hour every day, all day. The kid could run a marathon and come back and be like, what are we doing next? It's never like, let me take a nap, and going that million miles an hour. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, holy shit, everyone shut up. Like, leave me alone for a solid hour. I need to recover. And that's just, like I said, it's not like that all the time, but it helps. It helps a lot. Like, really taking the time to be self-aware and going, this is me doing this for me, not anybody else doing this for me, not me doing anything for anybody else. This is me for me.
Right. I think the biggest thing too is some adults struggle with, and I've seen a lot of people struggle with it in a little bit older generations, like people my age, like giving yourself permission that it's okay. to do things that are selfish and just for yourself, you know, and that it's okay to be very deliberate on those things. Like if you're going to go like schedule a massage, you know, like, I mean, I know business owners that have to do that. They're like, if I will get sick, I will get injured if I don't do these certain things. And they're very specific, you know, it's very deliberate. And that's okay. Like it's okay to lock yourself in the bathroom and take a bubble bath to get away from the kids. It's okay to play make believe with your friends.
If there's somebody to watch the kids,
right? If
like,
there's
don't lock yourself in there if the kids are like 3 and like
actually dependent.
I don't have any. I do. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like underneath this, there's a little baby cage. There's just like a 2-year-old sitting here,
just like chilling,
just chilling. Like it's fine. He's baby cage crib. Right. Same thing.
Right.
But yeah, no, just like that. That it's okay. Like it's okay. It's okay to make a spa appointment for yourself. It's okay to. I know some people that it's like I just go have dinner with myself.
I've done that and I love it. It's just like this is my zone. I'm like treat yourself. You know what I mean? I'm really into that.
I fucking love seeing movies by myself.
Really?
I fucking love.
I knew this about David when we went to Dallas. David was like, what movie was? Oh, I'm going to go see the new Top Gun by myself. I saw
Top Gun by myself. I didn't invite anybody else. I didn't tell him where I was going, when I was going.
No, he just left.
Everybody's
like, where's David?
He's seen Top Gun by himself at the Alamo Draft House, and it was amazing. Then the next day, I told John where I went. He's like, I'm going to go. He's like, well, I'm going to take the whole team to go see Top Gun. I was like, bet. I'll fucking see it again. I don't care.
Right.
I saw it first. I'm in. Why would you want to go see movies with other people? You're not sitting there talking during it.
Right.
It was Madison and I. It was one of our, I won't say first dates, but it was like within the first 6 months of being together. Like we were getting really serious and all these things. And we went out to see Fast and Furious 9. Okay. I've seen every Fast and Furious movie in theaters. I swear to God, I will not take any judgment about it. I don't care. They're the Avengers. It started, I'm fine with it. It started with them stealing VHS players off the back of a truck. And then Fast and Furious 9, Ludacris went to space. I'm good with it. I'm buying it. I'm fine. I bought it. It sounded believable. He was in a Pinto. It went to space. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I was fine. So we went to go see it. And the night before, I was talking with Madison. And she's like, do I need to have seen Fast and Furious 1 through 8 to see Fast and Furious 9? And I was like, yes, you do.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
They're all the same fucking movie.
There are so many characters and there are so many fucking elements of it.
It's like Back to the Future, even though I will say Back to the Future 2 is better than Back to the Future. But Back to the Future is the same thing. They go back in time, they save the day. Okay. Same with Fast and Furious. They race cars.
I'm ending this podcast right now because you just compared Back to the Future to Fast and Furious.
I've never seen any of the Fast and Furious.
I do agree with you that the Back to the Future 2 is the superior film.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went out to eat and we went to this restaurant that was across the street from the theater. And ironically, it was a place that Madison had worked all through her teens and her 20s. So she knew everybody that worked there. I had gone to that restaurant a million times. We'd never crossed paths that we know of. We could have. We just didn't know. We could have been 23 and never known. But I was sitting there and she was like hanging out with all of her friends and the movie was getting ready to start. And she was like, do you need me to go to this movie with you? And I was like, no. I'd prefer it if you didn't because you're going to ask a million fucking questions.
Yeah.
And she's like, are you going to be upset if you go by yourself? I was like, no, I cannot wait. And I went and I saw the movie by myself. It cost me half the money it would have cost to bring her. Like,
boom.
So like,
a win is a win.
I won't go to dinner by myself because I don't like being stuck with myself. But I will go to a movie and I will watch a movie by myself because then I get to disassociate and I just get to focus on the movie. So like, normalize being okay with doing things by yourself. Like it's okay. It's fine. Like,
absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. You don't need to go to bars by yourself. You don't need to go put yourself in positions where you're going to make mistakes. Don't
Right.
go to a strip club by yourself if you're a married entrepreneur. That's not okay. Like live your best life. Go with your wife if she wants to go. But like,
Right. It's okay to
only
get
good-
weird.
Yeah,
only
But
good
if
things-
nobody
only
wants to
good-
get weird with you, it's okay to go be weird by yourself.
not at a strip club. No, I'm gonna
No, that's probably not okay.
I'm gonna jump in here and I'm gonna say from experience, don't go to a strip club by yourself. It's fucking weird. You make friends with the other weird people who are there by themselves, and then you end up being the least weird at the table, and that's not where you want to be. It's
Right.
worst place. You want to be middle weird.
Yeah.
As usual, you can follow us on Instagram at F__K your pod, or you can email us. You have any topics you want us to discuss, you can email me at Emma@99creatives. You can email Katy at
Katy@99creatives.
And thank you, David, for being here today, especially on short notice. We called you an hour and a half before the show, and you know,
Happy to be here. It took me an hour to set up my studio.
did it really?
Well, yeah, because my actual studio doesn't look nearly as good as this.
Well, shit. Okay. Well, we appreciate that. Yeah. We hope everyone enjoys these episodes so far, and don't forget to do the damn thing. Okay, bye.